In Civ 6 or Civilization 6, every leader has not only strengths but also weaknesses. In this video, I'm showing you how to counter and beat every Civilization 6 leader, which should work in both single player and to an extent multiplayer, although with an actual competent human controlling the Civ in multiplayer versus the two semi-functional neurons Firaxis gave to the AI, this is really meant to be a single player guide. While everyone's afraid of the atomic goatsy Macedon can easily give you, as long as you don't lose any cities to them, they shouldn't be able to get Eureka's nor heal their units completely, so you should be fine since their unique units aren't the best. Build archers and walls if you're that worried about them though. Nubia has the best ancient era unit in the entire game. Any force dumb enough to go up against them is not coming home to their grandkids. Don't fight her in the ancient era, wait till the medieval or Renaissance era, get some cavalry, and then easily take out any remaining archer upgrades she's already done. Gaul's not the toughest civ to deal with on the defensive, but on the offensive, their guy Satai is super strong until about the Renaissance era, and the Oppidum is pretty much a second encampment, so avoid attacking them until the mid to late game, and even then they don't have any economic bonuses really too much to worry about, so I just avoid them for the rest of the game. Do not attack Vietnam at all, make friends with her and leave her be. Drive out the aggressors will absolutely destroy you if you give it the chance. Byzantium, you don't want to lose any units against him because then you'll have half your empire converted to whatever religion he has. Aside from that, he's going to have a lot of cavalry, so just have some spearmen to back you up. Catherine's strong in the ancient era because of the extra diplo visibility she'll have over you and thus extra combat strength, but you should easily be able to get that back with a trading post and maybe a spy later on. Mid to late game, you can take her out when she's already built a number of wonders with her Grand Tour ability. Just wait until the industrial era is over because her Garde Imperiale will absolutely demolish you. If you're going to get attacked by Chandragupta, attack him first. His territorial expansion gives 2 movement and 5 combat strength, but if you attack him, he isn't going to be able to get that off. Alternatively, you can avoid settling near him so he doesn't get that Casus Belli. Cleopatra, the best way to deal with her is to get on your knees, scream up to the heavens, and scream thank God, because she is going to be a great civ to start near. She'll almost never attack you, and if you send traders towards her, you'll get a giant amount of food. Just make sure you have enough military to keep up against her Mariano chariot archer spam, because if the difference is too much, then she will probably attack you in the ancient era. Same thing for Chandragupta with Cyrus. Declare war on him before he attacks you so he doesn't get his Fall of Babylon movement bonus ability. If you're playing on a Pangaea map, you could just ignore Dido, but if you are playing on an archipelago, you can ignore Dido. Her Byram is a stronger galley, which might as well be used as toilet paper the next time we deal with a pandemic, because it is an absolute dogshit unique unit and unit in general. The only thing you'll have to deal against her is the subpar writing Eureka she's going to get, as well as the extra settlers she can build. Eleanor's an easy civ to ignore. If she has a lot of great works, what you're going to want to do is attack her, don't take any cities, just pillage everything you can, and then get those great works in a peace deal, because again, her Court of Love ability gives her bonuses towards loyalty when she has a lot of great works. Germany is another civ that isn't too hard to deal with unless you're France or Poland. The U-boat is negligible, free imperial cities, nothing you could really do against that, and the AI usually isn't the smartest, doesn't have the requisite gray brain matter to build those Hansas appropriately, so a lot of the times you're better off just leaving them alone. Now, if you get to the atomic era against Gandhi, you're just going to want to hit that big red button and put all forces on high alert because he will nuke you 90% of the time. The best way to deal against him is either in the mid-game in the Renaissance or Industrial era because his Varu are extremely strong, not to mention you receive double war wariness against him, but the best thing to do is to just make friends with him and keep that friendship throughout the entire time. It's not that hard to get friends with Gandhi. Do not build any cavalry against Genghis Khan, he's just going to take him and use him against you. His Or2 ability is difficult, but there's really nothing you can do with the trading posts. The best way to deal against him is to build a number of spear units as well as range support. You just immediately make friends with Gilgamesh. Turn 1, the second you meet him, he will always accept that friend request, and since you're going to be fulfilling his agenda when you do that, you're going to have an ally for the rest of the game. Katarsia isn't the hardest civ to deal with in a Pangaea or continents map. If you are on an archipelago, run around and pillage any holy sites she has because she can use that faith to create jongs. Also pillage any districts adjacent to the coast of a lake or actual coast tile because she gets faith from that, and the jong is pretty strong, although if you do end up pillaging any escort units they might have, they are pretty much a regular frigate. Gorgo has one of the absolute worst unique units in the entire game. I could reach into my butthole and probably pick up something better than the hoplite. The thing to deal with against her though is to make sure that you don't lose any units so she doesn't get culture, and try to take her out early on if you have to, because the extra combat strength from military policy card gets better the later the game goes on. The way to beat Babylon is a 3-step process. Get on your knees, bend over, and pray to God it's going to be quick, because the spanking he's about to give you is nothing short of unfathomable. He gets crossbowmen and Gatling guns almost always in like the ancient era, so the best way I'd see to deal against him is wait until the late game. He gets a negative 50% science per turn bonus, so by that time you should be able to overtake him in science if he hasn't snowballed and beat him then. Norway's next. Build enough units to cover all your coastal district tiles or whatever. Make sure you don't build too many districts on the coast, and have enough of a navy in order to defend your coastline, because his biggest ability is the Viking longship in the ancient era, which can take your city in the first 10 turns if you're not careful, but after that he's only really going to be a nuisance pillaging everything you have. Japan's kind of strange. They're always going to get extremely strong districts thanks to the Meiji Restoration. Samurai's a great unique unit, and the electronics factory means they're going to be the #1 culture civ almost always in the late game, but a lot of the times you really can just ignore them. They're nothing too overpowering or crazy, and if you do have to end up attacking them, you could just send in a small cavalry force to take out their districts that are almost always going to be near other districts, cripple his economy, get a nice peace deal or cities, and rinse and repeat in the next 10 turns. Poland is next. There's really nothing to say against Poland. She absolutely sucks. Lithuanian Union really is only a problem if she founds a religion, which she doesn't have bonuses to. Golden Liberty is, I guess, the culture bomb. Nothing you can do about that except take her cities. And I guess Wing to Tsar, you'd probably just want to make sure you're not backed into a corner that you can't retreat from, because then you just take double damage. Giavarman's another easy one. He has lots of population bonuses, but if you're just running around pillaging all his holy sites, farms, as well as aqueducts, he's going to lose population and therefore won't be able to make use of his Prasat, which requires him to have 10 population for 10 tourism, or 20 population for 20 tourism. Aside from having to resist those big, beautiful, thick, succulent lips he has, the best way to deal with Portugal is to not play in an archipelago map, and if you have to, because he is the best civ in the entire game in an archipelago, the best way to deal against him is to just make sure there aren't too many civs or city-states, because he gets a free trader whenever he meets one. Don't ever attack Australia. Citadel of Civilization means he's going to have double production for 10 turns. Keep building units in your cities, but don't finish them. Wait until there's 1 turn left. Try to bait him into attacking you so he doesn't get the bonus, and then when you attack him, don't make peace until you take everything he owns, including that awesome top hat on his head. Aside from that, wait until the late game where you can get planes and then use that to take out any of his districts, because land down under does make them extremely strong. Christine is another absolute godsend, just like Egypt. The Nobel Prize is great, meaning you can end up winning more bonuses in the World Congress, but if she does ever get a lot of great works, which is literally the only way she's ever going to be a threat, declare war on her, run around pillaging everything, laugh at the unique unit, excuse of a unique unit, that is the Carolean, and then just pillage everything with cavalry, and when you make peace with her, try to take every great work she owns, or at least as much as you can. Kublai Khan China is funny, just laugh at him, he'll probably get offended and forfeit the game himself, but for Kublai Khan Mongolia, you don't really have anything to do. It's pretty much exactly how you would deal with Mongolia. Don't build cavalry, don't fight him until you get a little bit of a even footing on diplomatic visibility, because his only abilities are an economic slot as well as a Eureka and Inspiration when he establishes a trading post in your empire, and there's really nothing you can do against that. Kupe's funny because he'll almost always settle the first tile he finds in the ocean, which is usually 1 tile on an ocean for his capital. That's going to be easy because he's going to send a couple more settlers on the higher difficulties to actual coastline, and you'll easily be able to get them either through loyalty or just attack them, because he's never going to have the production to build the units he needs to defend his 2nd and 3rd cities, meaning it's free real estate for you. For Lady Thick Thighs, don't attack her within 6 tiles of her capital. Instead, take out her units from outside that range, and then take any cities from outside that range as well. She'll never have enough cities to end up being a threat if she stays within 6 tiles of her capital, and also if you do go in within those 6 tiles, she gets a huge combat strength bonus against you, so avoid that. Never fight Latoro in a golden age. If you are in a golden age and he's about to attack you, try to get someone else to attack him, give him some luxury resources, get on your knees and suck him off, because the 10 combat strength he has against civs in a golden age or free cities is disgusting. If you are having a city that is losing loyalty, make sure he doesn't doesn't beat units within that city's range, nor pillage that city's tiles, because he makes that city lose loyalty a lot faster, and then he could use his bonus against free cities to take that city before you can. Mansa Musa's an easy one to deal with. Pillages Sugubas are the only reason he's good. Try to take any cities he has in the desert, or even try to settle the desert for yourself if you are a mad lad, because that's where he gets most of his bonuses, and the Suguba is really the only thing that's given him money, and you pillage all the trade routes as well, yada yada, take away his money, and he's pretty much nothing in this game. There's two strategies for dealing with Hungary. Number one, make sure you have every suzerainty that he does, so he isn't able to levy units against you. Or number two, one that kind of requires a little bit more planning and patience. Save up on envoys, declare war on Matthias, he'll levy his city-states units, and then what you're going to do is with those envoys, wait until he has those units at your border, or you attack his cities and wait till he reinforces with those units, and then take that city or city-states back as your suzerain, and therefore he will have a huge amount of units within his borders ready to take out any city he has, and there goes most of his military. Don't fight Menelik on hills is pretty much all I can say. Aside from that, pillaging his rock-hewn churches will limit tourism and faith. His Council of Ministers gives him a lot of science and cultures, but there really isn't a lot you can do against that, aside from pillaging holy sites or rock-hewn churches to reduce his faith. Montezuma is very easy to deal with. Run around, pillage any luxuries he has, and if he is attacking you in the ancient era, a couple archers and a fortified warrior should be able to deal with his eagle warrior onslaught. After that, he's just easy pickings the rest of the game. The Congo isn't really the hardest civ to deal with. You probably could easily get a religion, so do that if you're up against the Congo. His Kisi ability is strong, but you should be able to either take his relics away in a peace deal, or trade them away if you have enough gold per turn to limit his food production in gold, but aside from that, he isn't one you have to worry about too much. Pachacuti is one you really can't do anything against. He's in the mountains and the hills in a fortified position, and he's going to have a huge amount of food and production, so it's going to be really difficult to attack him. The best thing to do against him is to just leave him alone. He doesn't have any bonuses towards a specific victory type, so 90% of the time he isn't really going to be a threat. When Brazil's in your game, Pedro specifically, make sure you're wearing a life jacket to deal with all that drip he has. I mean, if anyone knows where I can find that suit, please let me know. It's absolutely exquisite. Best dressed leader in the entire game. But for real, Pedro isn't really the hardest you have to deal with. He only gets the bonus to great people if he ends up recruiting great people, so if you are going for a victory type like science or culture, make sure you're focusing on great people more, so you get great people before him, so he doesn't get that bonus for more great people, if that makes sense. Aside from that, he's almost never going to attack you. I guess you could run around and pillage his force or whatever, maybe take a city and chop every reinforced in sight if he is going to end up taking it back, but he really isn't a tough unit to deal with. If you're playing on a water map though, be careful. He literally gets battleships one era earlier, so don't fight him until around the modern or atomic era. Same thing as Gorgo, except now you're going to make sure he doesn't have as many suzerains as he normally gets, and you should be fine. If you could find a way to put Putin in charge, it'd probably be a lot easier for you, but throwing that away, he isn't really the toughest civ to deal with. He'll never have a huge military, so you can just run around pillaging lavras everywhere, and if he is sending traders to you, just declare war on him and run around pillaging all his traders so he doesn't get the Grand Embassy bonus. Spain's kind of tough to deal with. Again, if he has cities on different continents, you could try pillaging his traders because that is where most of his power comes from. Aside from that, make sure he converts his religion to you. You just run around killing all his apostles and converting your religion so he doesn't have that religious bonus in the game. Just make friends and allies with Poundmaker, you get shared visibility, and he really is a walking tool when it comes to his abilities. China itself is a very fun civ to start near because he'll almost always spam builders and wonders. You're going to want to wait until around the medieval era and then take those ancient and classical era wonders for yourself. Never allow Scotland to declare a war of liberation. If you took some of his cities, one or two, make sure you immediately declare war after the 10-turn peace, because if he gets that liberation, he gets 2 move speed and double production, which is insane. Aside from that, nothing really screams scary in his kit. Arabia's kind of tough to deal with because you can almost never deal with them. They're always going to get the last prophet. They're always going to get a religious building. I guess the best way to deal against them is to attack them early on, because once they get the Medrasa and they get that last prophet and start spreading their religion, they're going to have an insane amount of science and culture, so do try to take him out before then. Another tough one to deal with, Korea, you walk around, pillage their Siawans, go home and call it a day. The Hwaka is a really tough unit to deal with, but they have to set up a turn to attack, so they can't move and attack. It's like a siege unit. So again, just run around, pillage their Siawans, and call it a day, pretty much. Shaka's tough. I would not recommend fighting him until you yourself get armies and corps, because that's a huge advantage he'll have over you, not to mention the extra combat strength he has against that. But the best thing to do is to get a coalition against him, get lots of melee units because he's going to spam spearmen and impy a lot of the time, and try not to fight him until you yourself can build corps and armies. Gran Colombia is a tough one. If you blink, he's going to declare war on you and immediately move 10 paces with one unit in the ancient era to start attacking and take your closest city immediately. The best way to deal against him, build spearmen and walls and archers, I guess, as a defense. Make sure he doesn't have any Commandante generals nearby, because those bonuses can be really strong, but aside from that, they are one of the harder civs to deal with. Suleiman's a good one to deal with unless you're dealing with Janissaries. If you are dealing with Janissaries, just try to make peace for anything, you know, give him your wife or something. That probably is a fair trade. And he is going to build a lot of siege units, so again, build cavalry, get the bonus towards siege units, run around and take out his bombards before he can do anything with his melee units. If you're struggling against Tamar, I recommend lowering the difficulty, but in all seriousness, she really isn't the toughest. I guess make sure you get adequate siege units or siege engines if you really want to go after her, but the fact that she's going to build walls and she really isn't focused towards any sort of victory type means as long as you don't fight her in the medieval era, you should be fine. Bull Moose Teddy is damn near impossible to deal with because he gets so much science and culture for literally free. The best stage you have against attacking him is to just get a couple allies and then attack him, or make sure you cut off his settling route so he doesn't settle as many cities as you do. Make sure you don't attack Rough Rider Teddy on your home continent, on their home continent. If you guys share the same home continent, you could probably deal with him if you get an early oligarchy, but aside from that, just build a butt ton of archers, declare war on him early on, and try to take him out. If not, then, well, you're probably gonna have to restart. That 5 combat bonus on home continent is tough to deal with. Tamiris is another one that's hard to deal with as a player, but against the AI it really isn't. She's gonna spam suck a horse archers, which a small breeze could probably take out, but you're going to want to build heavy cavalry or ranged units and keep them as defensive lines, because she's gonna have a huge amount of light cavalry. Make sure she doesn't kill your units as well, because she's just gonna heal up a lot of health if she does. Rome's a tough one. Try to attack him early on or in the mid to late game around where his legion comes around, because all the monuments and culture he is going to get is just absolutely mind-boggling. If you can, of course. If not, then the best thing to do is to probably leave him until around the late game, because he's going to have bonuses towards culture but not science. So you get ahead in science, you'll be able to deal with him in the late game if he's causing you troubles. Victoria isn't the hardest to deal with on anything other than an archipelago. If you are in an archipelago, then you are going to want to build a huge amount of navy units as well as a small land force, because she's always going to have the advantage on the seas, so you want to just land units immediately as quickly as possible to take her cities. With Canada, if you're not going to be friends with him, I do recommend either making or denouncing him in the beginning of the game, because nothing is worse than watching a Canadian settler run by unprotected when you can't declare war because you forgot to denounce them and now have to wait 5 turns. And finally, Wilhelmina. If you are going to go and take a city that is losing loyalty from her, then I'd recommend attacking her, pillaging trade routes because they do provide loyalty. Aside from that, she's always going to be near a river, so make sure you're planning that if you're trying to attack her. But aside from that, despite the fact she gets bonuses for districts on rivers, 90% of the time she isn't going to be too big of a threat.